Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this presentation of Heartfully Intelligent Kids. We're going to be talking about how to unlock your child's heart power in order to improve physical, mental, behavioral, self-regulation, and cognitive performance. My name is Dr. Michelle Gamble, and once again, I would like to thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I would like to make you aware of the fact that the information in this presentation is not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified healthcare professional, and it is not intended as medical advice. It is, however, intended as a sharing of the knowledge and information that comes from my research and experience over the past 25 years as an educator and a health professional, as well as other experts who have contributed to this topic. We encourage you to make your own healthcare decisions based upon your research and in partnership with a qualified healthcare professional. This presentation is provided for informational purposes only, and no guarantees, promises, representations, or warranties of any kind regarding specific or general benefits have been or will be made by myself, my affiliates, their officers, principals, representatives, agents, or employees. I am not responsible for and shall have no liability for any success or failure, acts and or omissions, the appropriateness of your decisions, or the use or reliance on this information. I will be beginning today's presentation with introductions. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself and why it is that I am so passionate about this topic. Next, I'm going to invite you to tell me about yourself and about what you're looking for. And for those of you who are going to be viewing this recording, I invite you to send me an email to let me know a little bit more about who you are and what your concerns are and what you are looking for. And perhaps some of you will even decide to pursue having a preliminary consultation with me so that I can find ways in which that I can support you and your family. Next, we're going to be defining the terms that we're going to be utilizing, such as self-regulatory disorders, holistic, coherence, resilience. And last but not least, we're going to be sharing with you the 3 simple steps that you can use to unlock your child's heart power. Those steps are assessing, planning, and executing that plan. So let us begin to start that transformation today. I would like to begin by telling you a little bit more about myself. My name is Dr. Michelle Gamble, and I have been an educator for over 25 years here in the United States and abroad. I've taught children ranging in ages from 6 up until adults. And I've taught a variety of different subject matters, including a heavy emphasis on mathematics and English, particularly at the junior high school and high school levels. I've taught in private schools, public schools, the Department of Defense schools. I've homeschooled my children for several years. So I really have a passion for working with families and working with children as they are developing. And in the more recent years, namely in the past 15 years, I've been an integrative wellness specialist. And my focus is healing-oriented healthcare provision. And I take into account the whole person, the body, mind, heart, and soul, including all aspects of lifestyle. I emphasize the relationships between all modalities of diet, nutrition, lifestyle, relationships, and I embrace all appropriate therapies, both conventional and what we term as alternative. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things today that are not really the conventional approach to dealing with the children that mean the most to us. So the most important thing about me and why this is so passionate a topic for me is because I have been there. I myself, if I were living in today's world as a child, I would probably have been labeled as ADD, ADHD. I had that, that need to jump from one topic to the next. That's why I double majored in mathematics and English. I would get tired of math and then switch over to English and vice versa. Um, and more importantly, in my adulthood, as I mentioned before, I've been a teacher since 1993, in and out of the classroom, as well as a parent who has chosen to homeschool her children for many years. And interestingly enough, after the birth of my fourth child, I was diagnosed as bipolar. And so that gave me an interesting wake-up call about how we have these subjective qualifiers and labels for people that really are not based on scientific facts. And that's one of the things that I want you to start really challenging in your mind at this point in time. The various types of diagnoses, the various prognoses in terms of what they have told you is going to be the life of your child based on that diagnosis. I want you to challenge that for a moment, or at least entertain the possibility of there being another world out there. I am a mother of 5 children. One of those children is a daughter that I adopted who had multiple psychiatric and behavioral diagnoses. You name the diagnosis, she had it. From schizophrenia to bipolar to manic depressive to post-traumatic, you name it, she had it on her folder. She's also diabetic. She was overweight. She has kidney issues, so she only has one kidney. And the amount of medical issues that she was dealing with, I can't even begin to tell you. So I'll do one better than that. I will show you. Here before you is a picture of my daughter Javeda before I adopted her, and right alongside of that is another picture of her 2 years after the adoption. And as you can see, prior to the adoption, she was extremely overweight. Her A1C levels, otherwise known as a measure of her blood glucose level, were out of the roof. Definitely into the diabetic category. In fact, they had her diagnosed as being a type 1 diabetic. And they also had her, like I said, diagnosed with schizophrenia and manic bipolar and oh gosh, post-traumatic syndrome, manic depressive. Oh, she had so many diagnoses, and she had to go along with those diagnoses 50 million different pills, several antipsychotics, schizophrenia medications included. And as you can see in the picture after, 2 years after, she has lost considerable weight. She lost over 70 pounds, actually almost 80 pounds. Her A1C levels have dropped into the pre-diabetic zone, and she is now diagnosed as being type 2 diabetic. And that brings up one of the most important things that I want to stress: the importance of testing. Before adoption, I was not able to get them to test her because I was just simply a foster parent, and no one really cares about foster parents. You have no rights, you don't even exist, really and truly. And then after the adoption, when I had legal rights, I was able to switch her endocrinologist and to demand the proper testing be done, and lo and behold, we found out that she is not type 1 diabetic. And through diet and lifestyle, we were able to bring forth the transformation that you can see. And what you don't see is the fact that she's on no medication, including no antipsychotics, no schizophrenic medication, no diabetic medication. We manage everything through what we call an orthomolecular approach, finding the right nutrients, and through lifestyle, exercise, stress management techniques, and things of that nature. And now, as I said before, I would like to learn a little bit about you. What are you looking for? When you saw the title of this presentation, what made you decide to listen? Why are you here? Talk to me. Do you have children or grandchildren, or perhaps it is even you that has a diagnosis of self-regulatory disorders? What are your symptoms? What is your specific diagnosis? For those of you who are here during the presentation right now, you can feel free to enter that information into the chat box. And for those of you who are viewing the recording, please feel free to email me and let me know a little bit more about you. So let us begin with a clarification of terms. I want you to really understand what I mean when I talk about self-regulatory disorders. I'm speaking about diagnoses or labels such as ADD, ADHD, autism, and mood imbalances. Basically, I'm talking about symptoms that present themselves as the inability to properly modulate our behavior, our thoughts, our moods, as well as our physical control over our bodies. So some of our children present with things like shaking or ticking or banging, um, have those looping thoughts, bounce from one emotion to the next, sometimes escalating and becoming in danger of hurting themselves. We have children who have racing thoughts and they can't seem to focus, things of that nature. So all of these I lump under the category of self-regulatory disorders. And if truth be told, as I implied earlier, many of us as adults experience self-regulatory disorders. So this program helps not only the literal children in our lives, but also those of us who are quote unquote grown up on the outside, but still little kids on the inside, still struggling to gain control over different parts of our lives and our being. The other term that I want to clarify is holistic. And you know, that's become quite the buzzword these days. 15, 20 years ago when I started this, not very many people used the word holistic. In fact, there were times when I was advised not to use the word holistic. But now it seems that everybody's really so comfortable with it that we kind of just throw it around willy-nilly as far as I'm concerned. But when I talk about holistic, I'm really talking about the whole, about being holy. I'm talking about having the approach that acknowledges the importance of not only the body, but also the mind, the heart, and the soul. Next, I would like to familiarize you with the concept of coherence. Coherence has been described as that space, that zone where everything is in sync, where you're just humming, where your thoughts are in sync with your emotions, are in sync with your body, and everything comes together in a beautiful harmony that promotes healing and wellness. And as you can see from this particular slide, incoherence occurs when there is tension, when there is discord, where the heart is either frustrated in some tension type of emotion, or the mind is caught up in worry and looping thoughts, or the body is tense, or all three things are happening. And during those moments of incoherence, that is when we do the most damage to our body, mind, hearts, and soul. That is when stress occurs to drain our energy and prevent us from being able to heal and to experience the flip side of that, which is coherence, where we are experiencing positive emotions such as appreciation, love, and care, when our sympathetic system has been modulated downward so that we're not in that fight or flight stress mode, when our body is relaxed, and when all three of these things come together, we have the beautiful zone that we refer to as coherence. The last term that I would like to present to you today is the concept of resilience. Resilience, as defined by heartmath.org, is the capacity to prepare for, recover from, and adapt in the face of stress, challenge, or adversity. And I would like to extend that concept of resilience to apply it to not only the heart, but also the mind and the body. And so within this program of looking at how to unlock our child's heart power, it is important that we understand that the foundation of that is our ability to build resilience, to build the ability to do exactly what I mentioned before: respond to, prepare for, and face adverse physical, mental, emotional, and even spiritual challenges as they present ourselves in everyday life, and to help our children to be able to do the same. When we are able to help our children to build resilience, that is the beginning of unlocking their heart power. That is the beginning of helping them to gain better self-regulation emotionally, mentally, behaviorally, physically. So without further ado, let's start with step one. Step one, assessments. Stop, look, and listen. And start to become aware of the need to search for the root of the problem and not simply look for band-aids for the symptoms. I understand the frustration of dealing with the many symptoms that your child may be presenting with. And yes, I have been there. I have been to the point where all I wanted was a quick pill. All I wanted was that annoying behavior to stop. And anything I could get in the moment was so tempting. But you know, the reality is that we need to start the process of searching for the root of the problem. And the root lies within the body, the mind, the heart, and the soul. And now here is where I'm really going to stretch you to search deep within your mind and to identify what is your paradigm. What are your underlying beliefs that shape how you choose to address your child's situation? For the sake of brevity for this presentation, I'm going to take one example. An example is, what exactly is attention deficit? Is there even such a thing as attention deficit? The fact that there are some people that have longer attention spans, does that mean that people with shorter attention spans need to be quote unquote fixed? What do we want to identify as the quote unquote norm? And what do we say about the fact that most of our CEOs, most of our creative people, most of our artists are what we would term as attention deficit? Do these people need to be fixed? And if there is such a thing as attention deficit, what's the opposite? Attention surplus? And what's the measurement? What is the standard by which we gauge this ideal, quote unquote, attention span? Who makes the definition? Who makes the diagnosis of attention deficit? This is a very curious topic because being a teacher in the classroom, I can tell you that I had students on any given day that other teachers would immediately write off as attention deficit, and yet those students would be able to perform in my classroom because I didn't take excuses for an answer. And instead of labeling these children as being deficient or defective, I looked for ways to capitalize on their unique gifts. So within this program, Heartfully Intelligent Kids, we do not refer to our children as being learning disabled. I want you to shift that paradigm, like I said, and start calling them what they really are, which is heartfully intelligent kids. They have a very different way of approaching our world. And when you take a moment to step back and really look at the set of circumstances that you've been placed in, you will recognize, and I think you might agree with me, that these children are indeed special in how they perceive the world, in how they interact with the world, and how they challenge us to bring forth our heartful way of interacting with them and with our world. And therefore, when we look at the vast array of symptoms that they present with, we don't look at these symptoms as being the problem. In actuality, they are the window or the doorway to the solution for underlying imbalances and disruptions in metabolic processes that we wouldn't be aware of if these symptoms weren't presenting themselves. What I challenge people to do is to think of their child as being in the zone of gifting them with blessings, not a curse. When your fire alarm goes off, it is as annoying as can be, but you don't go and smash the fire alarm and say, "Oh, you horrible gadget, you're disrupting my sleep." You thank your lucky stars that that fire alarm went off because it made you aware of the reality that there is a possible fire. And so now that is the approach that I want you to take. The approach of being the detective, of finding out where's the fire, what's causing the fire, what's causing the smoke. Because when we do that, we will uncover the root causes of what these symptoms are. And we will start to realize that these diagnoses, a lot of them which are subjectively based and not based on quantifiable science, a lot of these symptoms are really a matter of the smoke alarm going off to make us aware that there's something under the surface. And being in the minority does not equal being wrong. All it means is that your body, your mind, your heart is constantly giving you the message that there's something that needs to be addressed. Now, when we talk about assessments, the first thing that we're going to address is assessing the body-mind connection. And what I mentioned to you before is that a heavy emphasis in this program, in this presentation, is to challenge you to look at things differently and to come to the understanding that we should have an approach of lab test, not best guess. Physical causes, not simply visual behavioral symptoms. Mental causes, emotional causes, physical causes. not just visual behavioral symptoms, because how we choose to interpret those symptoms is completely subjective. As I said to you before, being a classroom teacher, I know that if you had a child that went to 3 different teachers, they would have 3 different assessments of that child. One teacher might say, oh yes, definitely ADD, ADHD. Another teacher like myself, very unlikely that I would put that label on a child, because I realize that more than anything else, we have disruptions in certain physiological patterns that underlie a lot of our symptoms. And I also realize that children are different, just like adults are different. And we have to be flexible. We have to be able to shift our paradigm to look at our children as being the gifted, heartfully intelligent kids that they truly are. So now, in my 25 years of teaching, I have heard so many different approaches to this, to the whole concept of labeling our children as ADD, ADHD, even when we talk about the application of the diagnosis of autism, the definition and the variety of different symptoms that have been lumped into the autistic spectrum has shifted over the years. And parents have criticized counselors and psychologists and psychiatrists for making diagnoses solely based on visual written evaluations instead of lab tests. And they have valid points. Can you visually diagnose someone as having ADD, autism, mood imbalance symptoms? Yes. Can you visually diagnose what caused those symptoms? Absolutely not. The American Medical Association and the American Psychiatric Association stated there is no lab test to diagnose ADD, ADHD. And the CDC states that diagnosing autism spectrum disorders can be difficult since there is no medical test like a blood test to diagnose these disorders. Doctors look at children's behavior, doctors look at subjective reports from teachers and guidance counselors, and that is what they use to develop and create diagnosis codes. But I'm here to tell you that there are lab tests that can identify the causes of some of the symptoms that your child may be experiencing. And as bizarre as this may seem, this is nothing new. In fact, in 1971, a doctor by the name of Alexander Schwartz published a book entitled Diet, Crime, and Delinquency. And if you can, I really encourage you to go to Amazon and get a copy. It's a very small book. It's an easy read. And within this book, he published the findings of a study that he did with over 20,000 juveniles from over 800 prisons. And they were tested for sugar levels and metal toxicities. And the majority of these children showed high levels in all of the areas that were tested. Indeed, study after study since that landmark study by Dr. Schwartz have shown that there are a variety of different triggers that can lead to the symptoms that we commonly associate with various psychiatric markers such as ADD, ADHD, autism, mood imbalances, schizophrenia, etc., etc. Some triggers include sugar, cow's milk, white bread, aspartame, caffeine, food dyes, gluten, GMOs, and the list goes on and on. A common root cause, which was very important in my own daughter's particular case, is undetected or yet unidentified blood sugar imbalance, otherwise known as hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia, and if it continues to escalate, diabetes. These variety of dysregulation imbalances within blood sugar in the body creates the symptomology of headaches, excessive eating, behavioral changes, and mood swings. Another root cause that can be identified through testing are food allergies and food sensitivities. Now, most people are aware of food allergies, such as, I eat a strawberry and then I swell up. But I'm talking more about food sensitivities, which are delayed responses to foods that ordinarily we would say are healthy. So you have certain people that have a severe chronic sensitivity and inflammatory response to things, like I said, as innocuous as bread or pasta or cheese or eggs or corn. It really depends on your particular child's circumstances. And like I said, the good thing is that we can identify these particular sensitivities through testing, because any food can be involved. In fact, for my daughter, one of the triggers is chicken. Who would have thunk? And all of these things have the propensity for causing behavioral change and mood swings. Another undercover saboteur that causes a lot of havoc and leads to a lot of the symptoms that we see in our children is an imbalance in the microbiome. Is your body's terrain a swamp? Is your child's body terrain a swamp? Do we have a situation where we have leaky gut, where you don't have a healthy flora and you don't have the healthy integrity of the lining of the gut? And what many people don't realize is that a leaky gut leads to a leaky brain, because eventually the same food particles that have seeped through the lining of the small intestine and into the bloodstream, creating that inflammatory effect and triggering the immune responses, will eventually start to bore a hole through the blood-brain barrier and create turmoil within the brain, create those mood imbalances and mood swings, create the fogginess, create the inability to focus. Hence the terminology leaky brain. Sometimes these imbalances lead to things such as SIBO and the extreme discomfort of this disorder. Having an overgrowth of bacteria within the small intestine leads to crankiness, leads to emotional outbursts and things of that nature. Candida, yeast, fungus, parasites. Not only do they lead directly to these symptoms, but they also lead indirectly to these symptoms by creating an extreme amount of toxicity within the body. These little critters create what we call endotoxins, which those endotoxins start to overburden the system, in particular the liver. And all of these undercover saboteurs can lead to vitamin and mineral deficiencies. And again, deficiencies in these nutrients cause a lot of the symptoms that we associate and we label and we tag as autism, as ADD, ADHD, mood imbalances, things of that nature. B vitamins are of particular import and can lead to those symptoms that we look at, such as dizziness, hallucination, fatigue, mood swings, headaches, crankiness, vomiting, nausea, nervous system problems, tics, shakings, things of that nature. Here you can see some more essential nutrients. As I said, various vitamins and minerals that need to be in the body, that due to our depleted, quote unquote, standard American diet, SAD diet, we have inevitable deficiencies in many of these nutrients. And then to compound the issue, as I stated before, other imbalances and other critters like bacteria and fungi and yeast and candida lead to further deficiencies of these very important nutrients. Now, I know you must be overwhelmed by this point, and you're saying, "Oh my God, Michelle, there's just so much more to this than I thought. I thought, okay, my child has a diagnosis of ADD, and they told me something about neurotransmitters, and I guess my child is just screwy." And now you're opening Pandora's box and saying it can be all of these other things. And now I'm adding to that it could be hormonal imbalances. Hormonal imbalances that we, dismiss later on for many of our female children as, oh, PMS, and oh, it's normal to have these PMS symptoms. So we just take a couple Motrins and we send our children on their way. But the reality is that no, hormonal imbalances are not normal. And these symptoms are just scraping the tip of the iceberg. Hormonal imbalances can cause a stress on the body, can cause the depletion of nutrients in the body, can cause mood swings. And in reality, this was a major issue for my daughter. Now, her hormonal imbalances were also linked to blood sugar imbalances, and we can talk more about that if that's the situation for your particular child. But all of these systems are interconnected, and they all impact each other. And that's why when you start to pull one part of the yarn of the fabric, you'll start to see so many other things unravel, and you'll gain clarity as to the reality that it is not simply a matter of taking a pill. That is not the solution. There is so much more that lies beneath the surface. And that, my friends, is what sank the Titanic. The tremendous iceberg that lay beneath the water because everyone was so preoccupied with this little tip on top, and they thought, oh, we're in the clear, we're dealing with the tip, we're going around the tip. Little did they know the tremendous expanse of what lay beneath the surface. And yes, I'm going to add even more to this Pandora's box. There is also the very real possibility of neurotoxic metals, heavy metal toxicity. And in many of our children that are autistic in particular, there is an overburdening in the system of iron or lead or mercury or arsenic or aluminum. And these children are particularly sensitive to these things. And then there's the correlation with immunization and the fact that many of our immunizations include toxic components. And some people, some children are okay. They go through the immunization process with no problem. But other children, namely the ones that we label as autistic or ADD or ADHD or mood disorders or schizophrenic and things of that nature, these are the children that many times have a genetic predisposition to being sensitive to these particular metals, to having a compromised system when it comes to effectively detoxifying from these metals. And so for many of these children, they're not able to unload the burden of these heavy metals that they're being exposed to. And for other children, they're just being exposed to such a tremendous quantity that it becomes overwhelming. And now, last but not least, I'm going to enter into very treacherous waters by talking about the elephant in the room. The fact that many, in fact, all of the drugs on the market will cause some form of nutrient depletion. Everything from the over-the-counter innocuous or seemingly innocent little Tylenol or ibuprofen or aspirin, Every single medication on the market will form some type of nutrient depletion. Every one of them. And when you think about our children that are starting their lives with medication, sometimes on day one, whether it be in the form of antibiotics or immunizations or whatever, do we have to wonder why they are so nutritionally depleted? No, we don't need to be Einstein to be able to figure this out, ladies and gents. It's just really a matter of, do we want to be the flamingo that sticks his head into the sand? Or do we want to come up and in the presence of the sunshine be able to truly look at what are the underlying causes of the symptoms that our children are presenting with? So here you have some examples that come from the Drug-Induced Nutrient Depletion Handbook. Aspirin causes depletion in B vitamins, C, D, folic acid, iron, potassium. Birth control pills cause depletion in several B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, folic acid, magnesium, and zinc. Antacids cause depletion in B1, vitamin A, copper, folic acid, iron, phosphorus. And you will recall that earlier we talked about what deficiencies in vitamins and minerals, how they present in terms of symptomologies, not only in our children, but also in ourselves. And so now we have to ask the question, are we doing more harm than good? Are we doing more harm than good? You know, our doctors are challenged with what we call the Hippocratic Oath. Above all else, do no harm. And like I said, I feel your pain. I feel your frustration. I have been there. And indeed, even now, there are times when I want to pull my hair out because it is just so much easier to just give my daughter a pill and say, be done with it. But now that we are becoming aware, we have to ask ourselves, are we doing more harm than good? Are we truly helping our children to heal? Or are we creating more problems that will lead to their further demise? And now looking at assessments on the less physical plane, looking to our hearts, looking to our minds, we start to ask the question, what is in your heart? Is your heart in sync with your brain? Because this very important assessment can help us to identify the degree to which we are coherent. And coherence plays a tremendous role in either promoting the healing emotions, the healing hormones, the healing environment and balance of the nervous system. And these areas further impact the physical. And I want to encourage you to not be so quick to dismiss what I'm saying right now, because a lot of people will come to me and they get really into the scientific, hardcore stuff and nutrition and diet and supplements and all of those things. But when I start talking about the importance of positive emotions, they say, oh, Michelle, that's just woo-woo nonsense. But it isn't. Did you realize that positive emotions can improve the brain's ability to make decisions? Hence, it can improve your ability to self-regulate. Did you know that positive emotions can boost your immune system? Did you know that positive emotions create physiological shifts in the body and therefore has physiological benefits in the body? Can create balancing of the hormonal system, can create balancing of the neurotransmitters in the body, can create balancing and healing within the gut. And contrarily, negative emotions create a whole heap of chaos and havoc and imbalance, not only in the body, but in the heart, the mind, and the spirit. So now we have talked about the first step to unlocking your child's heart power. We said that that first step is to do assessments, to do mental, emotional, physical, spiritual assessments, to do lab tests, not best guess assessments, to find out what are the possible root causes and contributors to the symptoms that your child is presenting with. So yeah, that's the first step, and I understand that is a tremendous whopper of a step. In fact, that's where a lot of people get bogged down. So, they get to the point where they've identified what the root causes are, but then it becomes, okay, now that I know what's wrong, what do I do about it? And so this is where step 2 comes in, creating a plan. Because those who fail to plan to fail, plain and simple. You need to make a contract. You need to set it out. Work with a holistic healthcare provider, or choose to become a participant in our Heartfully Intelligent Kids program, where you can get the benefit of day-to-day assistance with planning and the next step, which is being able to implement the plan on a day-to-day basis. And remember, when you execute the plan, you can't just execute part of the plan, because then you're not going to be successful. And like I said, I see countless people that do that. They piecemeal things, and then they wonder why they don't see a significant shift in the symptoms that their children present with. You've got to work the plan in entirety. You've got to complete the lab testing, get the interpretation, get an understanding of what all the results mean. You need to work on your mental paradigm and shift from thinking of your child as being some kind of deficient, defective person to recognizing that your child is a heartfully intelligent kid. You need to identify and decrease some of the triggers, whether they be mental triggers, emotional triggers, nutritional triggers, physiological triggers. Identify what those triggers are and decrease exposure to those triggers. You need to optimize nutrition and movement. And last but not least, you need to work at increasing coherence to build resilience, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual resilience, so that your child can become more capable of self-regulatory behaviors. So now I know your head is probably about to burst, because I have shared so much with you. And in reality, you're probably saying, well, Michelle, now I have more questions than answers. And I'm saying, yes, yes, because when you are willing to ask the questions, that is when you are going to be led to the answers. So many of us do not experience healing because we are too afraid to ask the question, why? So where do you go from here? Well, I always believe, have it your own way. You can choose to maintain status quo and continue in a world of emotional distress, discomfort, inability to enjoy activities with your children, fear of your children not being promoted, or fear of them not being able to be successful in life, dealing with expulsions and criminal activities, and just the overall burden of having to constantly be in that state of tension. That, to me, is the definition of insanity. Continuing to do the same thing over and over again, and yet we say to ourselves, oh, I hope, I pray that something is going to change. I'm here to tell you guys, nothing is going to change if you continue doing the same old, same old. And I am encouraging you because I believe in you. The fact, like I said, that you are willing to listen through this presentation tells me that there's something in your heart leading you to read the writing on the wall, leading you to want to be proactive and to initiate a change. And the good news is that transformation is as simple as 1, 2, 3. As simple as 1, 2, 3. As simple as 1, 2, 3. Assessment, plan, and execute. Cleanse, rejuvenate, maintain. Body, mind, heart, and soul. The kicker is that it's simple, but it is challenging. And I would love for you to allow me to assist you in making it just a little easier on yourself, to help you to maneuver through the labyrinth of the assessments, to help you to have the support and my expertise in creating the plan, and the support to be able to help you to execute your plan and to modify your plan and customize your plan as you go through the day-to-day implementation. I would enjoy being able to work with you in the context of our Heartfully Intelligent Kids program. And this program is designed to be like all of our other Sankofa programs, focusing on natural health care, customized, accessible resources and education. So we are accessible, we are available through weekly open office hours, through texting, through private individualized sessions, and we are customized to your individual needs, to your child's individual set of circumstances through the application of information garnered from comprehensive assessments, whether they be heart rate variability assessments with our heart math techniques and tools, or hair tissue analysis to determine nutritional deficiencies or toxic metal exposure, food sensitivity blood panels, stool analysis, hormonal testing, other types of metabolic testing, all to give you the ability to create a customized plan that will address your child's individual needs. And so, in closing, I would like to thank you. And remember, 2 roads diverged in the woods, and I took the one less traveled. And trust me, I know this is the road less traveled. Many more people are just satisfied to simply drug their children, medicate their children. So this is definitely the road less traveled. But I promise that in taking this road less traveled, you will find that it will make all the difference. And in the immortal words of Nike, push beyond the paralysis of analysis. Push beyond those mental gremlins of doubt. Push beyond the emotional anchors of conditioned responses. And just do it. I wish you peace, health, prosperity, and all the blessings. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, please feel free to be in contact with us, either via our website, sankofahealing.com, or simply pick up the phone and give us a call, 850-725-8322. Thank you.